We are amidst a digital revolution that continues to permanently change the way of human life.
The sudden explosion of digital media within the past several years has led to a generation gap in media literacy.
This gap divides the people born before our current age of advancing technologies and those who are born during and after.
People born before the digital revolution lack the knowledge of how to use and adapt to new technologies in our society.
Those born after the revolution have the advantage of being exposed to new technologies since the day they were born, making them more skilled with new technologies.
The two generations of people are known as digital immigrants and digital natives. A digital immigrant is an individual who was born before the widespread adoption of digital technology. Mark Prensky, internationally acclaimed speaker, writer, and innovator in the field of education and learning, claims that these people are today's older folk, whom are in the midst of learning the new language of our digital culture.
So I was probably in college when the internet really started to get big, and so before we had the internet, I don't know, I mostly just hung out with my friends, watched movies, read real books, paper, hardcover books, just went for walks, like hung out outside, anything that people that age still do. We just didn't have all the time spent online. So since the internet is here, my life is different in that I think it's a lot easier to stay connected with people, and I get a lot more done. I am online a lot every day, and I communicate with a lot of people. There's a lot more opportunities for creative collaboration and work.
Before I started using the internet pretty much daily, I played outside a lot with my friends when I was little, and then it became more of a part of my life in middle school and more through high school.
Before the internet, I played with my friends. I was involved in a lot of activities like dance and gymnastics and cheerleading. And that didn't really change much once I got the internet. But the internet, I think, added more of a procrastination element to my schoolwork. So I think the internet has helped me and has hurt me.
A digital native is a person born after the general introduction of digital technologies in our society. Prensky states that these people are currently kindergarten through college age and considered to be native speakers of the digital language of computers, video games, and the internet. Because I have grown up using the internet, I wouldn't know how to survive without it because I've had the easy way out. The internet is very important in my everyday life because I use it for schoolwork and for social networking. I've grown up using the internet.
I also have to help my parents with the internet, such as Google, Microsoft Word, and YouTube. Without the internet, I would probably be more active, and I would have to communicate differently from text messages to my friends.
Digital immigrants and digital natives use and interact with technology in different ways. Our first example comes from a conference proceedings from the annual ASCELECT conference in 2008 in Melbourne, Australia. Gregor Kennedy et al. Reported that digital immigrants use technology for standard purposes. For example, the older generations of people in our society use mobile phones strictly for communication purposes only, texting and calling. Digital natives, on the other hand, use mobile phones for standard purposes and also advanced purposes, such as photo taking, video recording, and listening to music.
Our second point comes from Professor Sue Bennett from University of Wollongong and Carl Matant from the University of Sydney in Australia. These professors reference the claim that younger people are naturally more tech-savvy than older people in our society. One can conclude that those whom are more tech-savvy are more apt to discover and try more things on digital mediums. Older generations of people are not tech-savvy, so they are least likely to experiment with the digital mediums for them.
Our third example comes from an outline publication by Ozzy Azur, a digital native, and Ofer Zur, a digital immigrant from the Zur Institute. These authors compiled a list of differences between digital immigrants and natives based on ideas from Dr. Larry Rosen, research psychologist, computer educator, and keynote speaker, and Mark Prensky's research and theories. Some of the differences include digital immigrants prefer to talk on the phone or in person, rather than digital natives who like to connect via text, chat, Facebook, online games, etc.
Digital immigrants think of the internet in passive terms of what they can read, review, and learn. On the other hand, digital natives view the internet in terms of interaction and participation.
Digital immigrants are singular taskers on digital mediums, in comparison to digital natives who are multitaskers.
Digital immigrants get their news from traditional sources such as newspapers and magazines, while digital natives get their news from not only traditional sources, but from social media websites, blogs, and other online news mediums. We have discussed some of the differences between the generations of people that are currently being affected by the digital revolution, but eventually every generation has to come to an end. Ultimately, in the future, there will be no more digital immigrants. Every person living on this planet will be coherent to our society's digital language. Dr. Larry Rosen discusses the next generation to be affected by the digital media revolution.
I spend a lot of time looking at different generations and how they relate to technology. So we start by talking about the older generation, the baby boomers, and then we move to the Gen Xers, and then we move to what I call the net generation, born in the 1980s. Then we move on to the I generation, with a little I in front of the word generation, born in the 1990s. And now we're already starting to talk about what we call Generation C, the more connected generation of kids actually born in the new millennium. And it seems like where we used to have generations that were about 20 years long, now we're looking at generations that are maybe only 10 years long, and it's totally because of technology. The technology changes so rapidly that every 10 years or so, there's a new generation of kids who approach it differently. We've just started looking at Generation C, and the C is for connected, collaborative, creative, communicative, and this is the generation of kids born past the year 2000. They were born into a world where Facebook existed, where iPods existed, where Wii games existed. All of the technology is something that literally was part of their birthplace almost. And what we're seeing from these kids is they are the ones who are growing up thinking they can do anything. This is a totally different generation, and as they grow, we're going to keep studying them, obviously, but they are going to be very different than their older brothers and sisters. They don't see technology as a tool. They see technology the same way we see air. It just is there, it exists, it's all part of their world, and this is the meat of their world. It's surrounded by technology.